Today we're going to do some testing. Can you use ChatGPT to repair a boat? This boat has water in the oil. In a previous video, we've already began diagnosing this boat by removing the manifolds, compression testing, and bore scoping it. Let's see if ChatGPT will give us the steps to diagnose and repair this. This is a video that I've wanted to make for a very long time because, as you guys know, AI is taking over the world, and this could be huge for both people at home or even techs in the shop that are struggling to diagnose a boat. So we have this Malibu Response LX that has an Inmar 5.7 on the inside. So what we're gonna do is put this into ChatGPT, and essentially we're gonna give them the boat model, the engine, and we're going to ask what we should do with oil in the cylinder. If you guys haven't seen already, I do have a video already up on this. It was in a vlog where we started diagnosing it, but I got the idea for the video. This way I can actually verify whether or not this is going to be accurate. So I can't say if this is going to be accurate in every situation, but this might be an ongoing video series where we use it for different things and try and see if this is actually a valid, trustworthy way of diagnosing the engine. Let's put this in ChatGPT and see what it says to do. I have a Malibu Response LX with an Inmar 5.7 engine in it. It has an oil pan filled with water, and I'm trying to diagnose it and figure out what's wrong. What steps would you take to diagnose and repair this? So they're coming up with their solution. So step 1, don't run the engine. Obviously, we did getting it out, and it didn't lock up. 2, identify how the water is getting in. So number 1, they're saying the exhaust manifolds and risers. That's a common failure point. If rusted through, water backflows into the cylinders and then leaks down the rings into the pan. Number 2 is head gasket. So look for steam clean spark plugs, uneven compression, and coolant loss. 3, cracked cylinder head or block. Often happens if the engine wasn't winterized properly, which it wasn't. Pressure test the cooling passages or use a cooling system pressure tester and watch for leaks into the cylinder's pan. And number 4 is the intake manifold gasket. So step 3 here is kind of the important one. It says compression test it. Low compression at 1 or more cylinders may point to a head gasket. We did that. We didn't have any low compression. Leak down test, which we didn't do, but will tell us where air is going or where water is going. And then coolant system pressure test, which pressurizes the cooling system. We can't really do that because it's raw water cooled, but also inspect spark plugs. So a steam clean plug points to which cylinder is getting water. Since we did the compression test, we know that no cylinders are getting water. Based on findings, what to do, so replace both exhaust and then replace both sides, which is a good idea. Head gasket failure, pull the heads, check for warping, resurface, replace. Cracked head or block, depending on the severity, may need replacement head or long block. And then if it was the intake gasket failure, pull intake and then replace it. It does go a little bit further into telling you what to do afterwards. So 1, drain all contaminated oil and water. 2, fill with fresh oil filter, run briefly to circulate, drain again. Do this 2 to 3 times. That's what I would do. 1's clean, fill with marine grade oil and a new filter. Yep. And then verify normal temps and pressure on the water tank. So step 1, it said don't run the engine. We already did that, pulling it out of the lake. 2 is where we actually get the information that we need. So it said number 1, the exhaust manifolds and risers. You can see they're behind me on the bench, but we already went through these guys and we didn't see any rust. We didn't see any water in the actual exhaust passages, and we didn't see any water in the cylinders. That's the biggest thing, because if these manifolds go out, there's going to be water coming behind the exhaust valve, and it's going to make its way down into the cylinder. So 1, we'll see rusty spark plugs. 2, when we compression tested it, we would have been blowing water out, stuff like that. So we know that it's not exhaust manifolds and risers. That was number 1. Number 2 is head gasket failure. So it says look for steam clean spark plugs, uneven compression, and coolant loss. The coolant loss, I think it's off a little bit because it thinks that it has a closed cooling system. So you would have a reservoir up top with a coolant level. We don't have that. But it does say look for uneven compression. So we did our compression test on it. We went through both banks and all cylinders were right around 150 psi. They were definitely within the 10% plus or minus of that number. So head gasket's kind of out. Number 3 is cracked cylinder head or block. So we looked around and we didn't see any visible cracks in the actual block. If it were a crack as well, we would see some compression loss or differences, but we didn't see any of that when we did the compression test. It could be a crack in the actual head, but still, if it was in the head, you would think that it would find its way into the cylinders, but I guess it could go just down where the valves are and then find its way down to the oil pan. It also says pressure test cooling passages or use a cooling system pressure tester and watch for leaks into the cylinders or pan. We can't really do that because this is raw water cooled, so it's not necessarily a sealed system where a coolant or antifreeze cooled boat would be a sealed system where you put the tester on the actual cap, pump it up, let it pressurize and let it sit. So we can't do that. But the one thing it says that we haven't done yet is intake manifold gasket. So it says on these 5.7s, the intake carries coolant through the front crossover passages. A bad gasket can leak water directly into the lifter valley / oil pan. This is definitely a possibility, and it would make sense for it to be this because if water is leaking into that lifter valley, it's going straight down into the oil pan and it wouldn't make its way into the cylinders. So those were the 4 things to look at. It says step 3, perform diagnostic test. So compression test was the number 1 thing. We did that and we didn't have any issues with that. It's a leak down test. So find where a cylinder is leaking air. So this would be more cracked block, which we can still do, but without compression numbers being low, I wouldn't necessarily suspect this. Cooling system pressure test, we can't really do because it's raw water cooled, and then inspect plugs. But the one thing it says is the intake manifold gasket. So we're gonna hop up in the boat and do that. So let's hop up in the boat and take a look. All right, got you guys with the top down view. So we need to get this intake off to inspect. We kind of have a few options here. One, we could strip it down and take it off. I don't want to do that, especially we're trying to keep this cheap. So the customer wanted me to stop after I took the manifolds and everything off because he didn't know if he was going to sell it. I might be doing this for free. So I'm going to try and replace as few gaskets as I have to. So with us taking the intake out, no matter what, we're going to have to intake manifold gaskets, but obviously we have the thermostat housing up front. This has gaskets in it. What we're going to do is take these hoses off. These are already disconnected from the manifolds, but these lower hoses, we're just going to take these off and leave the thermostat housing attached. We're just going to disconnect fuel injectors. We're going to leave those guys in. We have our throttle body up here. This is fly-by-wire, so we have the connector for that needs to get disconnected. We have coolant temp sensor in the top up here. We also have map sensor behind the intake, and then this side, and we're going to take the cap and rotor out, or just the cap out, so we have a little more room. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Let's get this cap out. We'll disconnect these hoses, start unplugging everything, and then get ready to remove the intake. All right, so we've got water hoses in the front disconnected, the wiring harness on both sides with injectors, map sensor, throttle body, coolant temp. We got the distributor out, which I'll put a clip up, but it is milky. So we have that out. And then the one thing that you guys will need, if you also had a 5.7 like this, is there's a fuel line disconnect tool. I will link it down below in the description, but it helps you get the metal fuel lines off. Actually, it doesn't help you, it's necessary. So now we have, this is an 8-bolt intake, so 2, 4, 6, 8. We'll get these guys disconnected, crack this intake off, and hopefully find out why this thing blew up. Well, that doesn't look great. All right, well, let's see if we can see anything, and it looks like I can. I'm going to use the iPhone camera to show you guys kind of more in depth. But if we take a look up here, you can see we've got cracks through the block side down to here. So that's all cracked. And then we have a chunk out of it over here. And that's where she's leaking. So not only, it looks like it's cracked. Yeah, I mean, you can see right there really clearly. that the block's cracked clean out. So that would make sense as to why we're not seeing it down into the actual cylinders. It's just leaking directly in here and going into the valley straight down to the oil pan. All right, so I just got off the phone with the customer. He does want to go ahead with putting an engine in it, so I need to get that priced out, get all that stuff coordinated. But in terms of this video, can you use ChatGPT to diagnose a boat? So far, it's looking like yes. So we'll kind of briefly go over everything that it said to do. It didn't necessarily give a troubleshooting tree, which is something, if you guys aren't familiar, a troubleshooting tree is a problem at the top, whatever it is. In this case, it was water in the oil. From there, does the engine have water in the oil? Yes. If yes, do this. And then from there, it just keeps on going down. If no, then yeah, you're good, whatever. It didn't necessarily give a troubleshooting tree, but it did follow the same process I would have gone through. So number one, it says check the exhaust manifolds and risers. If you guys watch the vlog, that was the first thing that I pulled off was the manifolds. That's a common one, that they freeze, water goes from manifolds behind the exhaust valve and then down into the cylinders. Number two, head gasket failure. Check for it, uneven compression, coolant loss. If this was a newer motor that had a cooling system on it, like a antifreeze cooling system, hell yeah, I would pressurize the coolant tank, let it sit, see if we have any coolant loss. If it's not external, it's got to be internal. Bore scope the cylinders, see if you could see it going in there. Yep, absolutely. Number three, cracked cylinder head or block. So it was the cracked cylinder head block. Where it cracked was on the inside of the valley. So it makes sense that we didn't lose any compression because it's just the water jacket that cracked. It didn't crack through the cylinder wall. So water's going in, and as it's passing by the cylinder, it's leaking into the valley, going straight down into the oil pan. Absolutely. And then number four, intake manifold gasket, which it wasn't the intake manifold or the gasket that cracked, but in the process, like if I followed this and I didn't know anything else, my number four would be intake manifold gasket. I would remove the intake manifold, and at that point I would see the cracks in the block. So although it wasn't something specifically stated in here, which I guess it was, but I still would have found it following this process. So three was our diagnostic test. So compression test, we didn't need to do a leak down. We didn't do the pressure test, which if we did the pressure test on it, a leak down, which is not a leak down, but if we did the cooling system pressure test, if we found a way to pressurize the cooling system, we would have heard it leak there. If we would have pulled the dipstick out, we would have seen air coming. So we would have known that it was getting into the crankcase somehow. And then spark plugs, we wouldn't have found it because we weren't leaking into the cylinders. And then step four, based on findings, cracked head or block, depending on severity, may need a replacement head or long block. It's gonna need a long block. So I don't know if I read this earlier, but after repair, drain all the oil and water, fill with fresh oil and filter, run to circulate, drain again, do this 2 to 3 times until the oil is clean. Absolutely, that's the process for it. You need to get all that old oil out. If you're keeping the same block, we're gonna have a new block. So the only thing that's gonna need to be cleaned out is the intake manifold, because that's gonna have all of our watery oil in it. Once clean, fill with marine grade oil and a new filter. Hell yeah. Verify normal temps and pressure on the water test. So we could even go further. It says, quick question for you. Did the water intrusion happen suddenly, like after one use, or did you discover it after storage winterization? That will help narrow down whether it's a freeze crack versus gasket manifold failure. If we, for the hell of it, let's answer this. So I'm gonna say, yes, it happened after being stored for the winter. So now, going even further into it, it says, that's really helpful, thanks. Since the water and oil showed up after winter storage, the top suspects shift a bit, likely causes after winterization. Freeze damage, this is number one, freeze damage, crack, blocked, or head. So they nailed it right on the head. If the block wasn't fully drained or didn't have antifreeze protection, water expands and can crack the cast iron. Typical cracks are along the sides of the block, under the exhaust manifolds, or on the cylinder heads near the water jackets. These may not be obvious until you pressurize the cooling system. So it's not where it says that it would obviously be. If we just looked at those things, we would think it was fine. Number 2 is intake manifold gasket failure. It wasn't that, but if it wasn't the block, it could have been. And then 3, manifolds and risers.
Unknown cola.
Alrighty, sorry about that. We have a winterized shrink wrap, oil change, lower unit, spark plugs coming in. Alright, that's put on the schedule for next week. Hell yeah. But back to what we were saying. Sorry about that. So scrolling down, this actually gives you like next steps for you. So I'll read this out to you guys. Here's what I would do in your shoes. Visual inspection, pull the spark plugs, look for 1 or 2 that are unusually clean, which would be steam washing. Check the block's exterior for freeze cracks or use a mirror flashlight along both sides under the manifolds. Look for rust streaks or water around the heads, manifolds. Pressurize the cooling system. With the intake and manifolds installed, pressurize it and watch for the pressure drop. So if we did this, we would absolutely find it. Oil pan, pull the drain plug, see if water drips, cylinder bores, use a bore scope or look through the spark plug holes for water entry. So at that point, we would have known that it was losing pressure, but we wouldn't have seen where it was coming from. And then number 3, intake manifold pull, if no obvious cracks are seen. Inspect gaskets closely. If they're degraded, it could be your culprit. Worst case, crack in the block. If you see a visible crack or confirm leakage into the crankcase under pressure, you're looking at replacement long block. So we would have found it. I mean, you can't argue with that. So absolutely, you can use ChatGPT to diagnose your boat. If you know nothing, if you have no clue what you're doing, absolutely, this thing's going to point you in the right direction. I mean, it was simple as that. Like, follow the steps on it, and we would have figured out what happened to it. So that's pretty neat. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. Everyone asks about pricing, so maybe to make this video a little longer, because I know this one might be short or shorter than I have been posting, I will take you guys through the process for purchasing a block. Purchasing a block, getting pricing on it, and what the total price is going to be for the job. And then this gives me a reason to put the gantry together. So maybe we'll even do that today. But I do need to get casters for that thing because it is such a pain in the ass when you can't roll it around. But hell yeah. So we got another job coming in. That's exciting. And I'm definitely going to film that for you guys. And that'll be a good video. So I need to do some other stuff right now. I'm going to move on to some other jobs for a different video. And I'll catch up with you guys when we go to order the engine. So I do know that I said that I was going to kind of bring you guys through the ordering process, and I literally just didn't. So I was on the phone. I just called Jasper. I have the pricing for the engine. So the cost for the engine is $4,182.50. So let me back up a little bit. If you guys call them, I highly recommend them. They know what they're talking about. So the questions he asked me was what the engine was. I said it was a 5.7 base. He asked what material the timing cover was. In this boat, it's plastic. How many bolts are in the intake manifold? This is an 8-bolt intake. And he asked if they were roller tip or just the ballpoint tip on the rockers. So that I actually didn't know. I pulled off the valve cover and they're just the ballpoint tip. So doing that narrows it down to the exact engine we need. So we're at $4182.50, and then the core on this is $480, so that's $4662.50. And then in terms of labor for this job, the long block, kind of the standard, is 20 hours, so we'll go with that. So my shop has a labor rate of $150, so 20 hours at $150 is $3,000 in labor. So we'll add that on. So that gives us a total for this job to put a brand new engine in it, $7,662.50. So it costs money to put a new engine in your boat, especially when, like, well, I talked to the guy and got approval on this already, but he essentially said, like, yeah, we'll do it. I mean, it's a rowboat right now. So you kind of get screwed, but boats are expensive. In terms of what he could sell this boat for in the condition that it's in, which is really good, especially with a new engine, he'll definitely get more than this job out of it. And then they do give you the option for an extra $150, you can get a 3rd-year warranty on the engine. So I don't know if he's gonna wanna do that, but $76.62.50 for the job plus tax. And then what's so good about Jasper, especially in my area, is they have one in stock. So I could literally have it delivered here tomorrow. I do not know if we're gonna do that, but we do have that option if we need to. So that's exciting. We know everything else is gonna be good on the engine. We know it's not gonna need manifolds or nothing's gonna sneak up on us afterwards, but this new long block will come oil pan, block, all the internals. It'll come with the head, timing cover, all of that'll be set up. So it's a pretty simple transfer. It's just all the accessories, the Fiat front end accessory drive, and transmission will come back over, which that is one thing I'm gonna look at before I go any further. I'm gonna pull the dipstick on the tranny and just see if there's any water in the oil, because the tranny cooler could have blown, allowing water into the transmission fluid, or the actual case of the transmission could have blown. So I will take a look at that as well, and I will be back with you guys in a second. All right, so hell yeah, I pulled the dipstick. We don't have any water in the transmission fluid, so that's a win. That makes things a little cheaper. So I think at this point, I'm gonna end this video. You guys make sure to subscribe, stay tuned if you wanna see this engine get replaced. I will definitely have a full video on that coming up. So that'll be exciting, need to get approval, but we can get this, I wanna get this one done quick because we're already starting to winterize. So this boat specifically, the guy keeps it in a heated boathouse. The reason that this cracked is he lost his heat last winter, but that's where he stores the boat, so he doesn't have to keep it in the driveway or something. We wanna get this boat back in his boathouse while there's still water on the lakes and it's not ice. So we have a little bit of time, but I need to get this thing out quick because pretty soon we're gonna be running boats in here, winterizing them and all that sorts of shit. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what kind of content you guys want this fall. If you want in-depth winterization videos or shrink wrap videos or stuff like that. We have project boat videos coming. I posted 3 times last week. We're trying to stay with the twice a week uploads, and we're gonna try keeping that going pretty much for the rest of time. In the winter, we'll have more project boat videos and in-depth gel coat, fiberglass videos, stuff like that, but we have a lot coming. This place is shaping up. Just earlier, I don't know if I filmed that on this SD card, but toolboxes are coming in. I got a fridge now, so it's getting pretty serious here. But yeah, make sure to stay tuned, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys.